The results of this study were mind expanding, literally. Were you aware that after about your mid to late 20s that your brain starts to shrink by 0.5 to 1% per year? Now this happens year on year for the rest of your life. Now of course we can grow new brain cells, but oftentimes the rate of cell loss outruns the rate of cell growth. Now there's this interesting study done, I think it was back in 2011, where they had 120 older people and divided them into two groups. They had an endurance exercise group, and then they had a stretching or tonal gentle exercise group. What they did is they took an MRI of their brain at the start to measure the size of their brain, and in particular their hippocampus, which is part of the brain that's responsible for memory. And then a year later they redid these MRIs to test what happened to their brain. Now in the tonal or gentle stretching group, their brains actually shrank on average by 1.4%, which is kind of along the lines of what they were expecting. But in the group that was doing the physical activity or the exercise group, their brains actually grew by 2%. So they effectively turned back their brain aging by 1 to 2 years. Now when I read this, my first thought was, well, what exercise were they doing? They must have been thrashing themselves to make this type of change. So it turns out that the exercise group did a 40-minute power walk 3 times a week. And to me that was pretty amazing, that you can do a 40-minute walk 3 times a week and get these types of changes to your brain. So we all know that exercise is super important for our joints and our muscles and our cardiovascular system, but it turns out that reading books like The Real Happy Pill by Anders Hansen, that exercise actually changes your brain, and that's probably the most important thing to improve, because it's your brain that controls everything else in your body. So hopefully you found this interesting, and hopefully it'll give you a bit of motivation to get out there and do a little bit of activity, especially walking. It's one of my favorite things to do, and it's what I recommend that everyone to do. And I know that if you do it, your body will thank you for it.